I'm back again. Very happy to be here. And before we jump into the session that Mirko, Mahmoud, and Shane are going to get us into, I thought I'd set the context a little bit of how we're looking at innovation in sport at AWS. And they're really around these four big pillars. The first of which is performance data and analytics. This is all the rich data that we're getting out that fuel things like match facts for the DFL. And the use cases there are varied. We're talking about at the league level, leagues are using it for things like virtual assistant referees, for new analytics, for player health and safety. Teams are using it for game strategy, for scouting, recruiting, training. And at the fan level, how do we use this data to bring people into the sport? Either teach them about it if they're unfamiliar with it, or let them dive deeper into the analytics that really fuel that passion. So that is one very big pillar that we focus on. Another around live cloud production and distribution. And Shane is going to go through this in a little bit. Oh, there we go. We have a slide that talks about it. So if you stop and think about the production of a live sporting event, you often see the big production trucks. Those are terrestrially taxing productions. It takes a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of money, and quite the carbon footprint as well. So moving some of those production workloads to the cloud to enable a much more efficient and carbon neutral production is something we're very excited about and seeing a lot of activity. That also feeds into distribution outlets, not just linear, but digital, and enables a lot more interesting use cases in that distribution as well. A smart venue sounds very smart. What does that mean? It means taking the pain points in a venue for fans and for operators and trying to ameliorate those. So things like when we talk to venue operators, often the complaint they get from fans are around ingress, egress, and concessions. And what are those two things have in common? Generally lines. So how do you use things like just walk out technology, which is frictionless payment, and Amazon One, which is identity management and biometrics to help facilitate the easier navigation around a venue. Connectivity is a very big part of this. Sustainability initiatives also a part of smart venue solutions. And lastly, fan analytics. And I think that's fairly self-explanatory. If we know who our fans are or who likely fans are, we can target them more effectively, market and advertise against them more efficiently, and create products and services that they will love. I'm done. They've called me off. So that really is just context for how we're looking at innovation in sport at AWS. And with that, I want to hand things over to my colleague, Shane Warden, to go a little deeper into some of these things. Shane?
Hello, everybody. And as the match gets underway, it's a perfect time to start talking about some of the things we've already heard today in terms of how important international markets are for us, how important what we do in the cloud with some of the amazing innovations and technologies we've already seen today. And obviously, a lot of those have now built on cloud. Selfishly, I would like to say a lot of them on AWS. But today, we're going to start to talk a little bit more about the broadcast aspect of it, and particularly, as Julie just said, about live cloud production. Now, live cloud production can mean a number of things to a number of people. In essence, it is using your favorite vendors, be they the Viz RTs, the Grass Valleys, the Sonys, many of the world's biggest manufacturers, all who are now building out within AWS. So the familiarity that users and operators are getting in terms of the environment that they can work and the kind of hardware panels that they use is increasing the opportunities for people to do their live production in the cloud. That would all be based and built on top of AWS's media services and the network and storage and compute capability that we have that spans the globe now. So let's dig a little deeper in what we sort of mean by live cloud production itself. We've been doing various POCs and testing, certainly within the partnership with DFL. We've done a number of very successful tests. And those tests have also been across with other sports and leagues around the world as we've tried to evolve alongside the partners that we have that are evolving as software vendors in this space too, to deliver the services that we need to actually start to produce live matches themselves. So in terms of production, we talk about host production, which is what you're seeing today. The coverage that you see on the big screen there, that is effectively where all the multiple cameras around the venue today are all being produced in one place. And that host production is super important and needs to be able to scale. Could be 8 cameras, could be 10 cameras, could be 40 cameras. You could have multiple matches all happening at the same time. Just in my old world, in tennis, where we'd start off the week with 15 courts, 20 courts, and by the end of the finals, we'd just be on 1 court. So understanding how host works is one thing, but driving what we've all been discussing today about how we can open up international markets and the marketplace is a different challenge, and one that I think is slightly easier in terms of putting your toe in the water in moving into the cloud in the first place. And why? Well, live cloud production doesn't need 40 cameras, doesn't need 40 feeds or multiple courts in that respect. To do an international production, or the world feed, as I would call it, as many of you have done and either received as broadcasters or produced yourself as a rights owner, would be just the standard number of feeds, be it the host's main program output, it would be beauty, ISO, those kind of things. So a smaller number of feeds that you can very easily contribute because they're probably already on a fiber network somewhere or available close to the cloud. So it makes it a lot easier. Also, international production can be done totally independently of the host production. The host doesn't even really need to know that you're working and doing it. And that's why you see a lot of international production nowadays is done remotely. But there's always going to be limitations in how much you can scale in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And so what we're talking about now is the bigger challenge that we're all facing as businesses in this world, to try and find the missing euros to really grow international rights values and to open up emerging markets. Now, those have their own challenges because there's fragmentation in the rights market. You need to drive harder into those territories to make more bespoke products for them. And you're trying to then basically drive new engagement across the board for those broadcasters who are receiving the international feed. And obviously, traditionally, we would only really provide one international feed, one world feed, and that would be it. But moving into the cloud starts to change that, because it means that you're now able to potentially scale up, right? And what I mean by scaling up, if you think about it, the host production that we have here, the trucks as you saw as you walked past in the TV compound over there, they're producing the actual match program feed itself. And that host production is driving those little feeds that we need up into the cloud for us to pick them up. Now, a standard international world feed, you might just add graphics and then distribute it from there. And those graphics could be in different languages. So that's a fairly straightforward way of doing your international. But we're talking about doing more, right? We're to do more to enable our broadcasters around the world and those markets to really start to benefit from the potential that we can have if we start doing this production more in the cloud. And by that, I mean we start to really scale out what we can do. Obviously, we can start to add in playback from and audio, adding our commentary. And then if we're in the cloud already, we've got the options of adding in virtualized advertising, rendering in region, and starting to really scale upwards and outwards. So today, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment, if you like, but I'm going to demonstrate to you, and we're all going to hopefully together make a world feed of our own of this match here and of another match that's going to be happening somewhere else. So we're going to simulate the fact that we're going to produce our own fully filled world feed for the coverage today. We're doing this with one of our partners, VizRT, and we're using all of the VizRT products today, the Viz Vector, which is the switcher, the audio, which runs underneath the Vector, the Viz Trio as the graphics, and Viz 3Play in terms of a playback source. Now, I'm also going to control it in a slightly different way, because as you can see, I don't really have a gallery here. And much as I could, and we could easily have a big switcher interface here, as you would expect in a TV compound, in a truck, or in a gallery, and a replay hardware. All of that hardware would be available for us to use and for me to do here, but obviously bringing it all onto the stage would be a lot for me to carry. So I brought my iPad from home. So we're going to try and run this international world feed from my iPad that comes from home, as long as my mum doesn't FaceTime me halfway through, of course. So let's make our own world feed now, shall we? Normally in a world feed, you have a running order. Your running order, you distribute ahead of time. This is what you're hopefully going to do as far as your world feed is concerned. That would be an ident, so everyone knows what on earth you're looking at when you're staring at a number of feeds coming into the facility. You also have your opener and then edited promos and content before that lead you up to the live content itself. We're not going to do one world feed. As I said, we're going to use the scale and the power of the cloud that we've built within AWS. We're going to make 3. So we're going to make a Spanish language, a Japanese language, and an English language variant of our world feed. So this is a fully filled world feed, OK? So in order to do this, let's switch to our multi-viewer. So now, this is a view that we have of what's happening up there in the cloud. I know I'm pointing up there, but you get where I'm going. These 3 feeds are being generated in the cloud and will then be distributed from the cloud. So what I have down here and what we're all looking at here are just simply monitoring of what we've got running up there in the cloud. And the control of it, I'm going to be doing from this iPad here as an example. So it's coming to the top of the hour. We've identified our feeds. We know what we're looking at in each of our territories, so I'm going to run the opener. So I queue the opener up, and I cut to it, and we start off with our titles. Now, according to that running order, we start off with our titles, and then we're going to run a promo. Now, the difference here is the promos aren't the same. They're 3 entirely different edited pieces of content that are edited specifically for the regions that they are serving, and this is where the difference starts to come in. Based on this, we can now have any number of editorial pieces of content that we're targeting those different regions and territories specifically to enable better engagement and better forms of rights value that comes out of it at the end. If I queue up my live match that we're going to go to, I'm going to go across to this live match. Now, I'm just monitoring this from down here. The real feeds are happening up there and can be distributed directly from within the AWS network, of course. But this is a different match that's happening somewhere else in Germany, let's pretend. We've simulated this live feed, and we just fed it across AWS into the instance that you're seeing there. And so if I really want to look at this match here, I might then, as the director, I might go to the live 2 box, which actually tells me then that I now want to go and look at my other live match, which is what's now happening here. And so I'll join the action here, and we wipe across, and now we're actually on this match. So as you can see, I can change between different live sources, non-live sources. I can queue up all the things that you might expect to see in a world feed environment, whether it's a 2 box or different sorts of graphics. And I'm just driving it with this iPad, but I'm actually running 3 different regions simultaneously while I'm doing this. And I could do more, because all we need to do is scale it up. And the number of instances that we need, an instance is basically a server that's sitting in AWS in one of our data centers. That instance, we only need about 4 or 5 of those to run a production like this. So it's very, very lightweight, very easy to spin up, and very easy to get going. Now, we've got our video up here, and I've been talking about video, but today we've seen that there's a lot of other things that happen in the cloud, and the power of that is we start to bring data into the equation. So data plus video starts to bring greater and greater opportunities for all of us. So I'm going to hand over to my friend Mahmoud here, who is going to talk about what happens next when we start to employ data and generative AI into these productions.
Thank you, Shane. All right. So here's the situation. Imagine you're a fan in Argentina. Your favorite Bundesliga team is playing here and now in Düsseldorf. You would naturally want to follow along live updates as they happen. But maybe there's no broadcaster now in Argentina who's covering this game. Maybe you look up online, you don't find any live ticker in Spanish. So what do? It's always said that sports have this unique power to bring people together. Yet, not everyone gets to live the thrill of a football match in a language they understand. I, for one, have experienced this firsthand as I grew up watching foreign leagues before I eventually learned English. So imagine a world, let us imagine a world where anyone, anywhere, can tune into a football game and receive commentaries in a language they can understand, maybe even in their native language. What I will demonstrate today is a first step towards making this vision a reality. A first step, really, in generating commentaries in multiple languages so that we reach a global audience. Let's get started. I'm using Shane's iPad here to change the feed. There you go. Introducing AI commentaries developed with our friends from SportTech Solutions. What you see here on the side of the screen are commentaries for this game happening in front of you. They are written in Spanish. They basically describe the events as they are happening now on the pitch. So let us see. I have put also here, just so you know, I have put the video feed as a reference for my demonstration. However, you, the fan in Argentina, would probably be looking at these commentaries on your phone, on your tablet, or generally speaking, as a second screen experience. So we're seeing the replay now that there has been a goal. So the referee just awarded a goal, and there you go. You can see that it has been shown in the live commentary, that there is a description to it, and if I can read it correctly, I need the glasses, but I could not read the player name from here, but well done, medals. So yeah, and also if you go, and yes, so if you also could read before that goal, you could see the events that really built up to this goal. You could see that there was a foul, a corner kick, a shot at goal, and so on and so forth. So then you, the fan in Argentina now, are not missing out. You can see things as they are happening. They are being written in a language that you can understand. So let's see how we have done this. If you could please switch one of the inputs to the slides. OK. All right. So now back to Düsseldorf. I mean, I'm assuming, as I said, most of the audience here, or many of you, don't read Spanish. So I have put here on the screen on your right these commentaries in English and German. So you could see two variations of the English commentary. One is a casual or more common way of writing and reading, and the other one is one I like, which is bro, which really is more targeting a younger audience, and also a German one. So this really shows that we can be generating these commentaries in real time as they happen in multiple languages. So now if you put your focus on the screen on your left, the only thing that we needed to generate these commentaries is event data. We took this event data, then we leveraged AI, and specifically generative AI on AWS, to generate these commentaries in multiple languages. Again, here's an example of that, and multiple styles. So the casual, bro, sports journalist, Twitter feed, and so on. You might ask, what is event data? Events are basically the actions that happen during the game. It could be a shot, a corner kick, a yellow card, and so on. These events are being recorded by a team of operators on site, on the stadium, and remotely as they happen, as they unfold on the pitch. On average, for a Bundesliga game, there are around 1,600 events data points. For those of you who are into this match data field, do not confuse this with tracking data, where we are tracking the positional data of the 22 players and the balls. For that, we're roughly generating 3.5 million data points, but we're not using this yet for our solution. We're only using event data. So leveraging this event data, we then leverage generative AI on AWS to generate the commentaries that you're seeing on the screen. That can be done in multiple languages and multiple writing styles and tones. Let's get a little bit deeper into more details. If I can click the button, yeah. So the solution here runs completely on the AWS cloud. We leverage a serverless architecture. Serverless means that you don't have to run, own, or maintain any servers. So why should you be happy about this? Well, because when we have serverless, it means that these basically services or infrastructure run only when there are events coming in. So if there is no matches running or no events running, you're not running any infrastructure, and that makes the solution quite cost-effective. On the other side, there's the scalability aspect of it. So this solution with serverless can go from 0 to a peak demand when there are multiple matches running in parallel with a lot of actions going on. So leveraging this, we ingest and process these events data that I have spoken about. Then we take it and we use Amazon Bedrock for generating the commentaries. Amazon Bedrock essentially is hosts or provides a number of large language models, or LLMs, that really fit all of your generative AI use cases. And it makes them available via a single API call. For our case, once we ingest and process the data, then we prepare the query to Amazon Bedrock. We ask it to generate a commentary in a specified language and writing style, and then we send the API call to it. Amazon Bedrock responds back with the commentary. Then from there, we store it in the database for durable storage. Then we send it to the web server, and from there, off you go to the end devices, for instance, this web page here. So with that, let me welcome Mirko on stage, Mirko from SportTech Solutions, who will tell us more how to take this solution to the next level. Mirko, please.
Thanks. Hi. With the AI commentary system Mahmoud has just explained, we're able to enrich the current products we have, but we'll also be able to create new ones. So I'm really excited that we are now able to create content even faster and bring them into the products, which I'm going to explain now. Looking at B2B applications, the commentary live system and the data platform from SportTech Solutions will be enriched by the outputs of the AI commentary system. And moderators and commentators and also other media partners and clubs, I believe, will benefit from it. Also, B2C applications like live tickers, looking at the Bundesliga app, for example, and also social media can be enriched by the outputs of such a system we are seeing here on the left, or on the right, actually. Yeah, this is what we're planning to do. And as the system is fully scalable, we will be able to create the content even faster and bring this into the products. And in various languages, as Mahmoud explained, and various styles and tones as well. What we are seeing here is a prototype. So we created this in the last weeks, a month. It's working great, but it's not ready for the market yet. So there's still work to be done, and I'm going to have a little look at our next steps here. First of all, we want to improve the system to be productive ready. And as a next step, we are planning to add more data points. So Mahmoud explained we are mainly focused on event data, but we want to bring in more data points here, tracking data, skeleton data, if available, and also Bundesliga match facts, for example, powered by AWS, will go into the system to create a better experience for the user. In addition, as we're focusing on play-by-play situations here, as you can see, substitutions and so on, we want to enhance that with adding more information, match statistics, seasonal statistics, but also historical information, as the Bundesliga just turned 60, is something we're going to add here, and then create data stories out of it, and also adding summaries to the AI commentary system is something we are planning. There was a lot of talks here about personalization before. That's something we also have in our mind and will add here. So adding information of the user and the preference of the user is something, especially for B2C, of course, B2C applications, is on our roadmap as well. And obviously, and the second last topic here on my bullet point list, adding languages and more styles is an obvious extension of the system. So besides enriching the textual outputs here generated by the GenAI system, we also think creating new new data outputs like images and charts and audio. This is something Mahmoud going to explain a little more. So let's see what you have.
Awesome.
Here we go.
So before actually I get there, for those of you who have been paying attention to the right screen, you might have noticed that the events or the commentaries are being updated. This is actually this serverless real-time events handling that I'm talking about. Because as the events team updates events as they're occurring, as they get more information about these events, we're actually sending these events again to our system, again to Bedrock, who generates a commentary, and we're putting it on the system. So you could actually see that this is being updated in real time as it's happening. Now, back to your left screen. Like Mirko said, so I have asked you earlier to imagine a world where fans globally can really have access to football or to sports events really in their own language, to really have this inclusive sports globally. So what we have done so this really is a sneak peek into the future, really a first step, a sneak peek into what the future of sports, commentaries, and accessibility and inclusion could look like. So we just demonstrated an example with text, but there is more to it. We could do more with audio. We could do more with visual assets, such as videos and images. With text, for instance, as Mirko has explained, we could be leveraging more data sources to generate more commentaries, game summaries, player biographies, and so on. But then if we're talking about commentaries, the next natural step is actually then to generate speech out of this text. And with sports and generative AI, we could be generating the speech that's filled with emotions, with the screams of the commentators, with the passion of a commentator that fans expect when they watch a football match or a sports event, more generally speaking. And then with videos, we can be talking about frame interpolation as an example, and that is generating slow motion videos from existing video clips. With generative AI, we could take an existing video clip, we could be creating more frames and basically inserting them into the existing clip, so that creates an ultra smooth slow motion video, and the fans then can relive their loved, preferred moments more intense and more detailed. So with that, let's go back to Shane and see what's been going on with our reward feed. Shane, please.
Thank you. So, meanwhile, we've been making a world feed, haven't we? And it's been going all day long. And I think it would only be right and proper if we actually closed out our world feed. So, excuse me, Mahmoud. Yes. So, what I'm going to do is basically cut out and cue the closer. So with that, then I'm going to run it. We're going to go to a beauty shot of one of the stadia. We're going to run the different language graphics. And then off the back of those graphics, over the live beauty shot, we're then going to run straight into some promos. And the promos, obviously, will have that regionalization, in this case, just with their end board, and then go straight into the end titles for our world feed. Now, if I look over here, everything we've just done is down in this little box down here. The important thing is that if we're bringing these feeds into the cloud, and there aren't that many of them, and it doesn't actually take a lot for us to build up, deploy, test, sandbox, and get confident with doing our international production and then start to scale out, what it actually is doing for us is opening the door to an awful lot of other things, right? Remember, if our live feeds are coming into the cloud and into our virtualized production environment, then we could consider bringing in our non-live content into the cloud as well, and actually wrap our cloud edit around it. So editors, whether it's social media, whether it's the broadcast team, whether it's the team doing news clips or highlights, they can be accessing that content from anywhere in the world and editing it in real time, in full resolution, remember, because it's not proxy editing that we do when we do this, right? So we can be editing in the cloud, and then the output, transcode for delivery, and delivering it either into your CMS for your OTT platform, or you're sending it on towards international broadcasters, news agencies, and delivery from that point on for the non-live content. Then what we can also be doing is, if you're editing your content and you're saving it in the storage up there, then your live match feeds could be ingested into that storage as well. And it then would start to make a bit more sense that your archive should be somewhere nearby. So putting your archive up into AWS makes a lot more sense too. Then, if you've got your archive up in the cloud, you've got edit capability in the cloud and delivery, then we can start to wrap around some of the cool data-related technologies and innovations that Mahmoud and Mirko were talking about, and beyond in terms of what you've seen already today. Dennis was talking about the AI/ML highlights, and the creation of the whole of the ecosystem for your international production can be done from non-live and live all the way through into wherever it needs to go in terms of social media or into your own OTT platform. So the story here is that giving you the capability to move into the cloud in a relatively straightforward, seamless way, using partners and products like Viz, you can then start to scale up, right? And from that scaling up, you can then scale out. And therefore, you're able to really start to maximize what you can do in terms of reach and destination, and hopefully start to have very different conversations when it comes to rights renewals because of all these added value services that you're now able to run. Because remember, if you have a broadcaster who is actually very cloud literate already and quite advanced in the way they're thinking, there is nothing to stop them also spinning up their services in AWS and taking feeds directly from you. So you can partner and give them what we call entitlements and access into content that you want to allow them to, so they can actually further customize just for themselves. So I'll end it there. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please pop by and see us at the AWS booth. There is the Free Kick Challenge that's happening. We have one of the legends turning up at 4:30, so if you fancy your chances, by all means turn up at that point, because I think there'll be some pretty good penalties taken there. But please, thank you to everyone on the pitch. Thank you to our host production team, our studio production team, and everyone involved today. And from AWS, thank you for listening.